and you look at the perfect individual to be in the right job at the right time, Army Futures Command, and what he's done since 2022 when he's come in has really taken it to the next level. Obviously, unbelievable background that he's got, multiple combat deployments, commanded every level from platoon all the way to division, and had, easy jobs like G357 of the Army, an easy job, kind of cush job, and then the Intellectual Center of the Army, a Combined Arms Center Leavenworth commanded there. But we're very fortunate, and put some pressure on him, because I said, he's always fantastic. Every time I hear General Rainey, I just go away thinking, wow, we're in great shape, because when you think this morning, he'll present ideas that are spot on about the future, and just shows the value of what we're doing, working closer with industry, with Futures Command to make sure the Army is set for the future. So without further ado, General Jim Rainey.
Thanks everybody, good morning. If you were at my talk yesterday afternoon, I will try and not repeat myself, but General Brown gets his money's worth out of me. My wife Tracy, our great Chief of Staff and Secretary, and General Brown keep me moving on my toes, so thanks. Hey, thanks to AUSA. I'm a big fan of a great organization that we do a lot. They do a lot of stuff, but that, they advocate for soldiers, spouses, Army kids, families. We're not talking about that a whole lot down here, but that alone is a good reason to spend some time with our great AUSA. The city of Huntsville, man, it's awesome down here. It's just every time I come, it's just unbelievable, friendly people. Beautiful place to be. So thanks for hosting again. Army Material Command, Chris Mohan, our great leader there, and that whole team. It's awesome for AFC because we basically just get to show up, and it's like going to see your best friend, hanging out at his house, eating his food, and then leaving. So it's awesome. Hopefully you don't have to clean up too much after us. I appreciate it. And to industry, all the industry teammates out there, one, thanks for supporting AUSA, but most importantly, thanks for supporting our soldiers and our great Army, and being teammates with this. I think about industry partners the way combatant commanders think about partners and allies. You can't get this done by yourself. It's going to take a team of teams. So I was thinking about talking. This is the third time I've spoke down here as the AFC commander. First time was heavy on the future of war. Second time I talked about process and process reform, things I thought we needed to do better. So rather than, those are the two things. So I thought I'd use my time today to do some updates and then hopefully take some questions. So the future of war, I believe the things that are not changing. So I always encourage people, if you're trying to figure out the future, nobody's going to get it right. It's don't be really wrong, so you got to think about it. And even if you did figure it out, it's going to change, a couple thousand times. So it's about thinking about and paying attention to the future. And start with things that are not changing. War remains a human endeavor. It's a contest of will between human beings. There's no indications looking at anything going on that is changing. It's good news for the U.S. military and especially the U.S. Army because our people are our number one asymmetric advantage. So that's a good thing. Second thing is the land domain. It is still a decisive domain. We fight as a joint force, but any idea that there's some change that is suddenly going to make the land not decisive is I see no indications of that. Again, good for the United States Joint Force because the Army, Marine Corps, Special Forces remain the premier land force in the world. And we are absolutely going to need to do things like fight in cities, close with and destroy enemies, in the most horrific conditions. That's been a constant throughout the history of warfare. That last 500 meters of fighting when nothing's working, that's not going away. There's no technological solution that's going to offset that. So our ethic, one, our people, two, our ability to do all arms maneuver warfare, underpinned by just ruthless and rigorous approach to training, the way we train. Sustaining those two things are must-dos. Then we can start talking about transformation, if that makes sense to everybody. So those are not changing. At the same time, holy crap, like last year, I was like, 2 years ago, I'm like, hey, things are changing, it's disruptive, most disruptive period ever, just more cowbell. I mean, it's more disruptive, faster. Adaptation cycles are compressing, complexity is going through the roof. Technological breakthroughs are coming in. I was talking to some of the best AI people in the country a couple days ago. It looks like the Moore's Law for artificial intelligence is running like about 7 months, 6 or 7 months. What we can do with artificial intelligence is doubling, so that's one, a great opportunity, and two, a little bit frightening if you think about it. So, what is interesting? So most interesting to me, and for our industry teammates and for the leaders that are out in formations who are thinking about, what's the next time we fight going to look like? I'll give you a few. Data-centric warfare. So you're always going to have a pace plan, hand and arm signals, tracer rounds are going to be part of the future of command and control if we fight somebody really good. But at the high end, the potential to move from stovepipe, siloed mission command systems, big batteries, big talks, that's over. So the Army's moving to data-centric warfare, which is going to unlock all the potential that's coming with large language models, really good commercial tech that can get you out of command posts and let you maintain a common operating picture on the battlefield. So data-centric warfare that empowers our commanders, which again is one of our asymmetric advantages. Another one, I talked about this a little bit last night, but most of us grew up fighting, looking at problems and deciding between a mass solution or a precision solution. So the fights I've been in, am I calling 155 ammo and a lot of it and adjusting it and doing it again? Or am I flying some precision munition through somebody's radar, command post, forehead, so am I going with precision? Am I going with mass? It looks like one of the big observations, especially what's happening in Ukraine and Russia right now, and don't get me wrong, 155, HE artillery is not going away. It's still the #1 killer everywhere. But it looks like technology is creating an opportunity to be precise and mass effects at the same time. Really interesting. So imagine instead of calling a battalion 3 of artillery, you can fly that many UAVs with an equal kinetic payload and fly it and it hits 10-digit grids. So that's really, really fascinating and something that we're paying close attention to. I'll tell you another one. Seek and strike. So you're picking either, it applies to both sides, but the ability to find things and strike them versus the ability to protect yourself from the enemy's ability to do that. So seeking, the hunter-hunted, advantage. That gap was already wide. That's why the U.S. Army, and you talk to anybody who's ever fought, and they'd much rather be in the offense and have the initiative, because once you stop, a lot of advantage confers to the person who's moving. But so what's happening with technology, especially sensing, and the precision mass thing I was just talking about. The gap between your ability to find somebody and hit them and their ability to protect themselves is wider than I've ever seen it. So closing that gap so that we can protect things and protect our formations is one of the things we're really interested in spending a lot of time. Human-machine integration, right? Not replacing humans with robots, but figuring out how to combine our great people with unmanned systems. And I use that term deliberately. That's, UAS, UGS, surface, subsurface, subterranean. We need to think about unmanned systems holistically. I've said before, as concerning and fascinating as what's going on with UAVs right now in Ukraine and Russia, I believe that's the leading edge of what's going to be a major disruption of the land domain by ground unmanned systems. Because technology is finally getting, what happened to the air domain in 99, 2000, 2001 with the onset of UAS is what we are witnessing happen to the land domain. Physics of land are harder, so now technology is finally getting delivered. It's really going to be disruptive. But again, it's not to replace our people. That's the wrong way to think about it. In fact, there's a lot of evidence that as you inject unmanned systems, you might actually have an initial increase in the number of people. But they'll be farther away from the point of contact. So maybe a little bit more people. There's not some great personnel savings to be realized in the near term by autonomy. What we're trying to offset is the risk. How do we use unmanned machines to make first contact with the enemy? The most precious thing we have is a soldier in a rifle squad. So let's not have them enter a building first with their face. Let's not ever again find an IED with a vehicle that has human beings in it. Let's not go breach minefields or find the leading edge of minefields with people, right? The days of big BSAs and DSAs and aviation assembly areas, those are not things in the future. Those are unsurvivable. Unfortunately for folks like General Hoyle and General Mohan and General Donahue, none of the work that happens there is going away. So we got to rethink how we do that. I think there's a big autonomy opportunity in our sustainment enterprise. General Mohan and I are spending a lot of time. I'm more interested in how would you build an autonomous, a human-machine combination in a FARP than I am about autonomous, helicopters, to be honest with you, because that's something we got to figure out. So human unmanned system integration, and then offense and defensive fires. There are a lot of great capabilities in the Army and great companies in industry that kind of do, we're the counter UAS active protection system guys, or we're the, red god of war guys. We're shooting things at people. We really need that to come together. We really need to merge offense and defensive fires. We are not going to have the luxury of taking a round with one set of radars, effectors, and leadership, and then passing it across the talk for somebody to shoot back. We really got to bring those two together. Data-centric warfare and AI, precision and mass, creating a great opportunity. The seek, strike versus protect gap is going the opposite direction. Human-machine integration, offense and defensive fire. So what, right? So adaptability and endurance. Adaptability and endurance. Those are going to be two key characteristics. And listen, I just want to be super clear. These are additive, right? The ability of our combat formations to shoot, move, communicate, train their ass off, and be well led by non-commissioned officers and commanders. None of that is going away, right? And that's really what deters people. Nobody wants to fight the pointy end of the United States Army. So these things are in addition to maintaining excellence in land warfare. These are things we got to add, which is complicated. So based on all that, endurance, soldiers are going to have to be tougher, stronger. The horror of war, if we fight large-scale operations, is going to be, unprecedented. So we need tough, disciplined soldiers that are well led all the way to the endurance of our country in what I refer to as the American industrial base, because it's going to take more than just defense companies. And the bringing that to bear is even more complicated because unlike something like 155, which you can fix by stockpiling it and storing it, things like good robots, good software, good UAVs, good unmanned systems, you can't say, okay, we need to stockpile them because 6 months later you're not going to want what you just bought. So it's a manufacturing challenge of how do you build something against the sustained rate with the ability to just 100x scale it within days. So that's a big challenge we're looking forward to industry figuring out for us. But and then the characteristic I would value tremendously in any formation is the ability to adapt. So we're going to get you ready. We're going to send you to war. Something is not going to be the way you thought. And even if you get it 100% right, you're on a 2-week shot clock before the enemy adapts to you. So again, this I think is an advantage for us. The time and energy we put into building leaders and teaching our leaders how to think, all the way down to the corporal level, how to think, not what to think, that offers a huge advantage for the U.S. So no change to the Army's modernization priorities. The chief is on the record. We've been real consistent with that. But as you go a little further out into the future, where AFC looks like, we're starting to organize our thinking around some emerging challenges. Command and control and countering command and control. So the ability to bring technology to bear so that our commanders can make more, better, faster decisions than the enemy, with an acknowledgement that no matter how fast we get, a big part of staying ahead of a really good enemy is going to be slowing down his ability to execute his command and control system. So making sure our commanders can command and doing everything we can to confuse, be unpredictable, delay the enemy's decision making. So anybody that's in that space, those two things are a paired set, we think, especially if you start talking about fighting somebody, some of our enemies. Cross-domain fires, joint fires, the ability of Army forces with agile land-based fires they can shoot from the land domain into all 4 of the other domains. That we owe that to combatant commanders, not to fight with the Navy or the Air Force, and we fight as a joint force, but we owe our combatant commanders optionality, the ability to confront their enemies with whatever combination of air, maritime, cyberspace, and land cross-domain fires to confuse and preferably to deter the enemy, and then if necessary, if you go to conflict, to win decisively. And farther and cheaper, those are the words. If you're building cross-domain capabilities from the land anywhere, we got to get the price point down and we got to get the range. In Indo-PACOM, like, to be interesting, you're probably got a 4-digit number, all right, in terms of ranges, and we have to drive the price point of everything down, offense and defensive cross-domain fires. And our commanders for the Army out there, you better be able to bring capabilities to bear from every domain. If you're the main effort and you're at the decisive point, I think we have to have commanders who have the competency of bringing any joint capability to bear when they need it and when it's allocated to them. Newer one, formation-based layer protection, and General Hodney talked about this a couple of days ago. And I mentioned earlier, coming to us with the counter UAS capability is interesting, but active protection systems a problem, defensive electronic warfare. What would be really helpful is if we flipped it on its head and said, I have this formation, tank company, because we know a lot about that. I can tell you how many tanks it is, and we can tell you everything you need to know about sustaining it, how many stowed kills are in that tank company. So formation lens, how would we protect that? Against the following threats, right? Direct fire, type 1, 2, and 3, artillery, cyber, electronic warfare. So we can tell you, pick a formation, the threats are very knowable and predictable. Then how would we take the combination of the combination of kinetic and non-kinetic capabilities to include integration of unmanned systems to protect that formation? Because what you'll find is you don't need to put active protection system on 14 tanks. You might only need to put it on half. And we certainly don't need counter UAS capability on 14 tanks if we could put it on 4 robots that could keep up, and in a short haul, the commander could establish a perimeter and throw a bubble over his or her formation. So formation-based, layered protection. All threats, all kinetic and non-kinetic capabilities, because then we can start making a lot better decisions about how much of what we want to buy. And here's a big one. As hard as it is to protect, the most of the counter UAS work, for example, is focused on fixed site protection. That's a problem. It's a wicked problem. But holy crap, we got to be able to do that on the move, right? So not only can I protect an ABCT, I got to protect them going 40 miles an hour, 300 kilometers a day, right? And some people, there's a lot of experts, fueling an ABCT going 40 kilometers an hour for 300 kilometers, that's hard. That's really hard. Most times in history, mech formations culminate for something other than the enemy. Now, not only do you have to still fuel them, that didn't go away, but now you got to be able to throw a formation-based layered protection on top of that formation at that pace. Or what about a good light infantry formation that used to be able to use restricted terrain to take advantage? I don't know. Can't hide in the jungle anymore. You're pretty much limited to an urban area is the last place where you can actually. Now the light guys will be okay, because the good news for them is their ability to sense and strike is going 10x every year. So now you got IBCTs. I grew up some great light fighters in here. It was a 3 to 5 kilometer fight. Now it's sense anywhere you want and strike, out to 50. So the light guys will be okay, but we got to do a better job of protecting them, because the little speed is security thing ain't holding up to the test of time if you're walking with 100 pounds on your back. So formation based, all formations against all threats, lethal, non-lethal, offense and defense. We got to close some ground on that before the next time we go to war. And the last one is what we refer to as expanded maneuver. So maneuver, combination of fire and movement, that has not changed, but we need to start expanding our thinking about that. What do I mean? Time, space, and purpose. We got to be able to fight for longer periods of time. So the endurance thing, we're going to fight for different purposes, and we're going to start fighting in much larger geographic areas than our formations are used to. Close combat's not going away, not going away. That is going to remain decisive. It's what deters our enemies, them knowing that if all the stuff that, the sexy stuff doesn't work and I end up in a gunfight with a tank or a U.S. Army rifle squad, it's going to end bad for them. Because, people ask me all the time, who's got the best tank? I go, well, we could argue about that all day. Who's got the best tank company, right? Because ours has NCOs in it, well-trained company commanders, you know what I mean? So a well-led, well-trained formations is what our enemies want no part of at all. So we got to keep our close combat dominance, time, space, and purpose. Phil Kennery and the team did a great job talking about the squad as a system. And if you've been in the Army a long time, we've been down this before, but the complexity of technology, what Sergeant Major Hester and our great Sergeant Major in AFC, you put a pound in, you take 3 pounds out. That's where we're at with these guys. Pound in, 3 pounds out. And if we could, we'd put another 100 pounds in. There's no shortage of things to put in a squad. So for everybody working on giving them stuff, how about some help getting the weight off them? Most of the opportunity is in figuring out alternative power sources to batteries and autonomous resupply. Those great 11 Bravos are carrying 3 days of supply because the C bag stands for never see it. You know what I mean? So they put it all in their ruck. They don't trust the sustainment enterprise. They love them, but they're always going to have more stuff than they need. So let's establish the fact that resupplying a light infantry formation with a couple 100 pounds and a heavy formation with a 5,000 pound or so heavy lift UAS, that technology's out there. Give them robotics that can keep up with them so they can put the extra 2 mortar rounds on and take it out of their rucksack. So big picture, expanded maneuver, joint warfare, we got to do that, but let's not lose our North Star that it's about soldiers and squads and helping them out. We got to get better, division down to individual soldier or squad up to division. What do I mean better? More lethality, more survivability, less weight, less sustainment. That's what I think. You got to shoot, move, communicate, and survive. That hasn't changed since people started fighting. It's not going to change. But we owe our soldiers and our commanders in the Joint Force better formations. And I'll wrap up. So again, acquisition industry. I talked about process improvement. We got to keep improving it. Our secretary during his testimony, Dave Fitzgerald, if you were here, I think a couple days ago, great. The Army needs to be a better customer. So you've heard that from our leadership and our chiefs on the record with that. So I start problem solving with myself, my organization. So we own that. We got to be better. Some things that might help. Formations, you're picking up a theme, right? Formations, we buy stuff, we fight formations. Help us be better customers by explaining to you what we mean by formations and which formations are what priority. The only metric that matters is capability in the hands of a warfighter. That's why I love TIC. I used to have 20 metric charts, now I got one. Is it in a TIC brigade? And then when the answer is yes, is when's it going to be in every brigade? Or what's the next brigade that's getting it? So the only metric that matters is capability. You don't get credit for a great requirement document, an agile acquisition process, sailing through testing. None of it matters until it's in the hands of formations. So that's one. I think the Army, you will see us. I'm a big fan of the Forge Act. I think we're on to something, if you're familiar with that. But organizing around requirements. You should not have to come to the Army and deal with 3 PEOs or, PM surf through 40 of them. There should be like, hey, I'm doing fires. Who's the human? What's the point of entry? So we're going to do a better job of organizing around our requirements, and then capability. We got to, there's way better business people in here than me. Incentives drive outcomes, right? So we have great acquisition professionals, we have great contracting people. We got to make sure what we're measuring and what we're incentivized results in the outcome that we're looking for. Cost, schedule, and performance. That's not, that's what they do because that's what we told them to do. That's not what we need. What we need is capability. capability, game-changing capability in formations at max possible speed, and extra credit if there's a good, cost-benefit analysis to that. So those three things: formations, organizing around requirements. We owe you that, and then let's get focused on incentivizing outcomes in a way that puts capability in brigades. From industry, I had a great engagement the other day. Just some things. Probably don't have time today, but I'm glad to follow up later. Multi-vendor. One vendor is the worst thing that can happen to the Army. So multi-vendor approaches to acquisition and requirements. Tranched buys. Some people don't like that, some people love it. The difference is usually whether they're comfortable with competing and have good technology. Because the people have good culture and good kit like to compete. So we don't want to buy we'll buy 58 brigades of something, but we're not going to buy it 58 brigades in some kind of Game of Thrones death match and sign up to a 10-year, and let you make money off the parts, right? We want to compete. We want to buy 58 brigades of good UAS, but we want to buy 3, 4, 5 at a time. Recompete it every couple of years. That's going to be a culture change. I hate integrators. Only thing worse than an integrator for the Army is the Army trying to be the integrator. So, we need some industry. We need industry to team together, self-organize, just like you do to solve any other problem. If you can't do it yourself, you go out and find great companies. We're going to value companies, the bigger, we're going to value the team you can pull together. I'm very interested in proposals that include, like, we have the following great companies on this journey with us. And at the same time, we don't want you to do exclusivity things where if you can't lock up companies that are probably valuated across any set of teams we try and build. So this is kind of new and emerging. Exquisite and cheap. Exquisite and cheap. We're the United States of America. We should have exquisite stuff. We make things back, and people are like, your tank's 50 years old. I'm like, yeah, our tank's 50 years old. It's still the best tank in the world. You know what I mean? I'd rather have a new one, but we need to keep modernizing. But my point is, when America brings its best technology-wise, it's exquisite, and we should keep doing that. At the same time, we should buy cheap mass. Really interesting. A lot of value in 30 millimeter cheap rounds that can knock down UAVs, even if you have to shoot a burst of 30 at it. 155 round, a good old fashioned HE 155's got a really good price point if you're trying to kill people or take land from them. So both of those things are good. If it's going to be expensive, it needs to be exquisite. And if it's going to be mass only, it needs to be cheap. And if you think of those two things as about 10% at each end of a continuum, the Army, we can't spend 80% of our money on the 80% in the middle. We got to move our buying to those two extremes where your great companies are out there waiting for us. And I would tell you, the way we look at something in threshold and objective in requirements, people kind of shoot for the threshold and start figuring out how to get to the objective. I would ask you to come in, if you're way better, come in at the objective. Come in above the objective. Come in below a threshold, but 10x on one things. You know what I mean? Hey, we can't do everything you asked for, but we can do 70% of it right now, faster and cheaper. We don't have the payload set, but we got more range than you're asking for. We got to start kind of talking to each other like that. And I know that takes a lot of change. So my commitment to you, one, because I believe in it, two, because everybody who's left that can tell me what to do said to do it, is the Army's going to be better customers with you on this journey. We need you all with us. And thank you very much. God bless you. And if we have any time left, I'll take some questions.
Hey, sir, good morning.
You like that Red God of War reference?
I do.
Me and you are the only people who've ever read it.
I like that. I like offense, defensive
Alderson.
fire. I like offense, defensive fires. I like a lot of what we said. Our panel's a beneficiary of your schedule change, and we're going to follow you.
Okay.
You said a lot of great things. Could you expand and we're going to talk about scalability at speed.
Yeah.
And you talk about the challenges that you see at your level, enterprise level, scalability, excuse me, and sustainability as we continue this transformation journey.
Yeah. Well, Joe Ryan and the panel they did, I didn't hit TIC transformation and contact real hard because it's been well serviced. It's a well shot at target over the last couple of days, but that's where it starts. That is gigantic to go and say, hey, we're gonna skip a whole bunch of process, get good kit into the hands of our formations that are doing things. We're fortunate right now, we don't have a lot of soldiers in harm's way, although, recent reminders of how dangerous the world is, and it's dangerous to be a soldier. But we have soldiers in units all over the place, Got a great call from Korea, like, hey, I don't know if we qualify as TIC, we're like 70 years into this, so yeah, we should probably take advantage of that fact. Middle East, Europe, all over the Pacific. So that was the Chiefs thing, and it's brilliant. So that's where the speed's gonna come from. And I can't guarantee it, but I'm almost certain that anybody who's putting kit into a TIC brigade can also put their software engineers or their real engineers with that kit. If I was doing what you're doing, and the feedback I get from industry is one of the most valuable things is that soldier feedback. So if you get your stuff into TIC brigades, put your people with it, and close that feedback loop. I love soldier touch points. It's one of the things that AFC, Mike Murray and the team, it's one of the successes early days of AFC. To me, TIC is a 9-month soldier touch point. It's awesome. The scalability thing concerns me. The optimist in me thinks that we're gonna have a breakthrough on the fiscal agility thing, right? I tell my people, if the chief pulls it, if the chief and the secretary actually get the ability to move the money they have, how much they get, whatever, that's why we have so big control in the military. But the ability to move what we have at the speed of war, holy crap, that's going to be a game changer. I'm telling all my guys, you plan on, it's always good to plan on your boss doing what he said, being successful. So plan on the chief and the secretary getting this. And you're gonna be a dog with a mouth full of fender, like going, what the hell am I gonna do now? Because the chief's gonna be like, hey, I got the money, I got the unit, technology exists, why isn't it in the formation? So all the requirements guys move the goalpost, the acquisition guys are too slow, contract, blah, 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 the test guys, like all, I don't know how well you know General George, but if there's anybody in the world that's more patient than me when it comes to getting stuff to formations, it's him. So I think we're going to see a rapid progress, but the limit will be the amount of money and the amount of people to scale and manufacture. And I mentioned earlier, high-tech stuff, you wouldn't buy it 6 months from now. That's why we like tranche buys. Think of a single piece of technology, if you were paying your money, that you'd say, I would buy this if I had to keep it 5 years. I'm rocking an iPhone 8 or something and driving 97 F-150, but other than me, most people, got a little bigger spin cycle on technology. So we got to go faster, and can industry keep up? And can you keep up when we say, hey, we can't buy, we know we're going to need 100,000 of those, but, we're not going to be able to buy, we want to buy 100,000. We want to buy 10,000. Sustained rate, but when we hit the gas, can you ramp that up significantly? So it's a pretty wicked problem. So a lot of optimism in the near term, and then do we run out of money, and can we keep up on scaling? But I'm a joint guy. I love the joint force. Everybody's in it. Also, I'll just speak for the Army. The Army's ready to go. We have no shortage of great requirements, no shortage of great existing technology. That is, we're ready to go, max speed. So when we get the money, we get the ability to move it, and we got to deliver.
Hello, sir. John Stow. I organize the MOSA Summit across the Tri-Services, and there's a big influx of suppliers that bring partial solutions. So I heard three things you said, and I've got a question to follow up those three things. One, you're a big fan of the Forged Act. Two, you hate integrators. And three, you want to see rapidly competing teams, but without exclusivity.
Yeah.
So here's the question, right? The Forged Act is proposing capability-based budgeting as opposed to platform-based budgeting, the way that we see it today. And that has a potential to really unlock the supply chain for things like new sensor providers, new algorithm providers. But if we don't do modular systems budgeting, and we don't do capability purchasing at that kind of sensor level, you're gonna have to buy a whole new UAV every time you just need a new sensor with longer range. What's your approach on modular systems with the Forged Act? Thanks, sir.
Yeah, thanks. I don't hate anybody, except, well, anybody in the United States. So I said the integrator model is not good for the Army, and we're not good at it. And you know, it's the agency thing. I mean, you do. It's not a criticism. You do what you know. It's a model that incentivizes you to do what you do. You got to run businesses. You got boards. The Army loses all kinds of agency and downstream selections. It's just not good. It's not good. Doesn't mean there aren't great companies doing that. So now to walk that back a little bit. Yeah, open architecture is absolutely the way. I think we got some work to do on autonomy and robotics. That's what I've spent the last couple months on. But we just had a MOSA conference up at APG. The idea that we have to be able to have a set of agreed upon standards that allow us to integrate. I think the FLARA program is a good example. You know, we from the ground up, we're not going to have any problem integrating anything into that. XM30, next gen tank. So even the biggest platforms we have, the places where program of records do make sense, all we're buying is the you know, the shell. You know, that's all. Even there, we want to be able to rapidly iterate and integrate and update the turrets and the weapon systems and the ammo. And then when it comes to software, I think next generation command and control, where the Army goes out, you know, and more to follow. But you know, if we standardize the API and how we're gonna expect data to come into our system, I think it's, you know, it's just gonna 100x our ability to go faster. Yeah, take one more, apparently.
Sir, good morning, Steve Calhoun, Lockheed Martin.
Yeah.
Appreciate your comments this morning. I liked your comment too, about integrators. Obviously, we're a big integrator, but it sounds like, you know, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others, right? So, but anyway, so on requirements, so just an observation of what your thoughts are on requirements. Like that's where a lot of the challenges are. And I know you're certainly at a very senior strategic level, but it's at the requirements level. And if sometimes a little us versus them, I mean,
Yeah.
just the ability to get, you know, a government person or people at a whiteboard with some industry partners to think through that, what the requirements could look like, because that sort of launches everything, right?
Yeah.
We operate on very flexible contracts, OTAs, et cetera, but when those requirements come in sketchy and there's a lot, you know, transformation contract, I get all that.
Yep.
So that's really where the money is, I think, right? So if what are your thoughts on trying to get better at getting government industry together to really work through those requirements, especially if we go to a fixed price contract type of environment? I mean, there's many, but thoughts there, please?
Yeah, well, we got great acquisition professionals, and I would defer some of that to them. There's big R requirements, little R requirements, and, you know, people throw the term around, and, you know, some of this reminds me of, like, I've been on some bad teams where, you know, the offense blames it on the defense, you know, hey, we scored plenty, you guys gave up too many points, and, you know, like, that's a crappy team, right? If you're doing it for pointing fingers at your teammates, you know, I'd rather be on the teams that I've been on where we win big and, you know, go to the bar afterwards, right? That's the kind of teams we want to be on. So fixing any one part of it's not going to matter. We got to fix the whole process. And we're the requirements guys. We've got to do better. A couple things I'm very proud of our team, and it's because of the chief and the secretary's support, is at one end, directed requirements, right? I'm all for acquisition reform. I think we should keep getting better, but buying a piece of technology that currently exists is not an acquisition problem. It's a government credit card, GSA catalog problem. You know what I mean? So we shouldn't use our combat development process to buy good stuff that you guys have that our soldiers need right now. So directive requirements are 2 pages, 2.5 pages. Here's what we want, and here's when we want it, and we're going to buy 3 brigades worth with the potential to buy more. We did that on one of the UAS. You guys all probably tracking more than me. So we have a UAS directive requirement out that one of the things is we wanted in a brigade in 6 months, and we came in. And don't quote me on the numbers, but 24 really good companies came in on it initially. Then we went down to some single-digit number, and part of it is like, you know, we don't need any written proposals. We'll be at this location at this time. Come fly it. You know what I mean? So that I like, and I think that's fair. And the feedback I get from companies is 1 of 2 things. Well, you know what you don't understand, or like, how do I get on post? I'm here waiting for you, you know, right? You know what I'm saying? Apex predators, people that are heading the wrong direction. So I like it. The other end of the spectrum, equally proud of characteristic and need statements. New thing, right? People are like, what is it? I'm like, it's new, you know, which gives, I like new things because you don't have to follow the whole process as roles. This is what we did with Next Gen Command and Control. We have one that we're working on for human machine integrated formations, and we have one we're doing on formation-based layer protection. And the idea is go out to industry with a couple pages, clearly define the problem we are trying to solve. You know, put 90% of my time into the problem statement, right? Couple pages of characteristics that we think we want, non-binding, open to better ideas. That's how we should make contact with industry, right? That's the beginning of a requirement. And there's all kinds of rules, you know, we can't collaborate on requirement documents with industry. That's not what I'm talking about. Go out and say, hey, we're trying to protect formations against the following threats while they're moving or sitting still, right? Holistically. That's about it. Get a bunch of people together. What I'm hoping is that leads to self-organization of teams that can solve the sum of that larger problem. There's very few things that one company can solve if you take a formation-based lens, which is why I talk about some kind of new industry team leadership of agile teams. So those 2 things are helping. Now, the other thing we're doing is going through every requirement document we have in the Army and killing ones that are outdated, don't matter, so we can get down to, you know, if we got 600 programs, we probably shouldn't have 1,600 requirement documents for you guys to sort through. And we got an AI, large language model approach to that. You know, we found some M1 tank thing that was on a photocopier, not a printing machine, but those, you know, signed by General Campbell or somebody back in the 70s. But anyways, really appreciate you. Love AUSA. Great being here. Thanks again to Huntsville. Thanks to industry for coming on this journey with us, and for the men and women that are strapping it on every day, keeping America free. Thank you, and everybody please pray for the ones that are out there laying in the rain somewhere so we can be here enjoying this conference. God bless you all. Thank you very much.